This is becoming more work than I anticipated. So I can't just, sit down and record without not having enough storage space on my phone. What the fuck? Back to chapter 2. Welcome back to Native Narrative. I am your host, Brooklyn Native, where we dive into these awesome books that I am guided to read, and we divine esoteric messages from things that stand out throughout the read. I love bibliomancy, by the way. Bibliomancy and whatever is called when you divine a message through a song. I like that too. Divining messages through songs and television and movies. I love that. Love it. Because when you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, and you're aligned with the Most High, you tend to see messages everywhere. It looked like it say I got 16 minutes to record. Let's get through chapter 2. So I already recorded chapter 2, but it wasn't the entire thing. Whatever. This is take 4. A fortnight later, with my husband Fred and our frayed Irish terrier Penelope, and I moved into what was to be my home for almost 7 troubled years. It happened that night. After supper, improvised out of tins, we stumbled wearily off to bed. Fred in the first little room off the long hall, I in the second, which contained an armoire, the arch, the recliner, day bed, which I elected to whenever overtired. I stretched out on it gratefully and lay listening to Penny's light breathing from the wicker basket at my side. But sleep was elusive and my thoughts began to nag. Less dismayed than I less dismayed at its deplorable condition, Fred had seen the potential of the apartment instantly, yet I felt uneasy. You pay attention to those nudges. You pay attention because that's going to be your saving grace every time. I have that highlighted. So I highlighted certain things that just, stood out most to me as messages. The task of rehabilitation ahead now seemed impossible. Labors, painting, sanding, scraping, scrubbing, and then there was the smell. Gradually, I had become aware of it. It seeped into my nostrils like sniffingly, suffocatingly. I sprang up, went through the arch into the tower room and threw wide one of the curved windows. So she basically got up and threw the window open because it smelled so bad. But second red flag. Red flag number 2. It was an October night filled with the blandishments of Indian summer. A ripe moon hovered over rooftop and chimney pot, with here and there a lit skylight glowing in the dust. The nocturnal noises of 10th Street were muted here in the back gardens. I stood a long time at the window, filling my lungs with scented air. Once again, old brick, old glass, old trees cast their spell over me. They were substance and the 20th century that lay outside my door, no more than fitful shadow. The smell had gone. With sleep welling up in me, I threaded my way back among the cartons and packing cases to the daybed and curled up on my side. Moonlit meanered through the uncurtained windows. blanching the wall I faced. One moment it was bright, white, blank. The next it was filled with a monstrous moving shadow that loomed up from behind me, smothered me in sinister, soundless void. Blacker than the night, it engulfed me. I could feel myself dissolving in it, slowly disappearing through a throat curdle with terror. I screamed and went on screaming. By the time Fred rushed into the room, I was in the cold, clammy grip of hysteria. How to explain the inexpectable? A shot of brandy, a cup of strong hot tea, a cigarette. That's actually a hottie toddy. Hot tea with a shot of brandy. That's a hottie toddy. Shout out to my mother for putting me on. I could not stop shaking. Could not make the words come out right. But I tell you, I wasn't asleep. I didn't dream it. I saw it. It was real. I cried over and over. Penny, offering herself as comfort, jumped up and pressed close to my chill body. But in Fred's eyes, I saw only incredulity and a growing impatience. All right. You weren't asleep. So it was the branches of the trees reflected on the wall? Fred, listen. I tried to tell him about the trees, but his eyelids were weighted with exhaustion, and he cut me off with a yawn. Honey, I have to get up early. Go back to sleep. It's been a rough day. Y'all don't notice that even in the movies, there's someone who's aware and they're trying to like tap the others like, hello, this is what's going on, and they be like, no, you're just tripping, you seeing shadows, it's nothing. Red flag number 3. I would have left his ass there. Found a friend to stay with, something, a hotel, a park bench, bitch. Like, that apartment is not safe. Okay, where was I? Go back to sleep. It's been a rough day. Moving really takes it out of you. You know, when you're this tired, it's easy to imagine things. Maybe. Already, he was half out the room. It was a bird flying across the moon. Tidily rooted, unflappable Fred suddenly taking off in the night on the wings of Posey with a fine druidic touch, yet he who customarily met fancy with a flat mattered of factness that made my more delicately attuned antennae quiver with indignation. It was too much, especially since it hadn't been fancy. Still shaking, I got up and retraced my steps to the open window. It was just as I had tried to tell him. The top of the trees reached only to the 3rd floor. I could hear their breeze-born rustling, yet no branches showed upon the wall. As for the moon, it smirked back at me, relentlessly bright. If any winged thing had flown across it, then it had been a bat. A vampire bat? Shivering miserably, I crept back to bed with my arms hugging Penny's woolly pelt. I waited tensely through the night. Waited for what? Toward dawn, I fell asleep, still waiting. A late morning sun lay aslant the reclaimer before I roused. It clung like a poultice to my eyelids. I guess she's trying to say she got like eye boogers. I rolled over and opened them tentatively. The wall. I was facing the wall. The memory of the night before washed back over me with terrifying intensity. The shadow, a darkness permeable, a moving darkness. I went into panic with Penny at my heels. I paced frantically among the cartons, with the exception of a few bed linens, cups, and saucers. They were still packed. I could call the same moving company. We could get out of here quickly. 2 cups of coffee and too many cigarettes later, I faced the dismal truth. There was no place to go. Park bench, maybe? Just a suggestion, girl. This was the year of our landlord, 1957. This is the 1950s, y'all. New York City was locked into a housing shortage. Sounds vaguely familiar. Where was I? Housing shortage. The Desians of the zoo basked in better accommodations than some of the natives, and for those who had not already found their niche, there was nothing but the dreary uniformity of a project. So basically, nobody. So basically, for the immigrants, there was a housing shortage and they had nowhere to go other than the projects. That's what she's saying. There was nowhere for them to go outside of the projects if she didn't stay there. If she didn't stay at this Greenwich Village apartment. That's where she's at. She's in Manhattan. That was the thing back then. Yes, living in Manhattan along the Central Park strip was the thing back in the day. Back in the day, they were building houses, over Seneca Village. That's what they was doing. That's part of the biggest reason why I chose to read this book, because of the time setting that it took place. Dreary uniformity of a project, the dubious amenity of a cold water flat, or luxury of a high rise, The west side was decaying. The east side was for laying. All around the town, rents were spiraling, and the myth of gracious living survived only in the glossy pages of House Beautiful. Guess that was a magazine at the time. Here, at least, the Emmett Greening of Washington Square was a townhouse with fireplaces and bookcases beneath the windows and gardens below them, and hauntings. If I did not know precisely what I had seen, I knew with certainty that I had seen it. But in the light of day, I was only too willing to capitulate, to render unto reasoning the things that were reasons. What were the reasons for the Bermuda Triangle, where ships and planes simply vanished like the rabbits of a conjurer? Simply? Or for an Easter island deserted by its unknown sculptors of the gargantuan? Or an old Sarum left behind its earthworks to brood humanless over the Salisbury plain? Logic failing as it did hourly, might not, whatever it was, have been a one-shot thing, a passing boogeyman who couldn't refrain from saying boo any more than I could resist peanut brittle? And if I refused to be stampede, if I just ignored it, the taglines of a verse I didn't remember, I knew floated back surprisingly. For everything, there is a reason. Hello? Is this thing on? For everything, there is a reason. So it's saying that I have 16 minutes, and meaning we're up to 14. So I have like 2 minutes left. So we're going to stop this and re-record it.